Is critical race theory the biggest threat to America?
Charlie Kirk, honored to be here. We're gonna have some fun.
Do you describe yourself politically in any way? Like,
I guess you could say I'm on the right.
conservative?
Yeah, more than that.
And then-
Conservative and love of the country.
Howdy. Yeah. I'm Vaush. I'm a YouTuber. And I guess I call myself a Libertarian Socialist. I like some parts of the country. I'm a big fan of some parts of it. Some other parts I think could use some improvement.
Right on. Now we've got Ian here, as per usual. Hi. Get him, Charlie. Crush Vaush. Vaush is gonna own.
Wokeism. Archangels of the wokeism.
0% of you are subscribed. Fix that.
So let's talk about the other big topic, critical race theory.
Yeah, so there are two CRTs. There's the critical race theory that I know of, which is a highly esoteric, essentially elective class that you can take in some law schools that teaches you a variety of incredibly eclectic legal theories that some of which I like and some of which I think I disagree with. And then there's the critical race theory that people like Christopher Rufo have been trying to push, a sort of catch-all term to describe all anti-racism. We see these anti-CRT bills being put through straight legislators, and a lot of them don't even mention critical race theory. They mention stuff that's been boilerplate anti-racist theory for like 2 centuries. That stuff really concerns me. I think that academia is to an extent sacred. Of course, all the good things in our society now were born in the halls of academia. The Enlightenment, our democracy, the fair trial that we enjoy if we're arrested, these were things that were originally considered to be the crackpot initiatives of academics, and only through the respect of those ideas have we arrived at, well, what we have today. So if there are problems within academia, I would have them solved in academia, not through the big hand of government reaching in and censoring everyone who says something that disagrees with some political party.
So a point of clarification, you don't believe that critical race theory is in schools?
I think that maybe there are ideas which overlap with critical race theory, but there's always going to be overlap between academic ideas. I mean, I drank water, so did Hitler, one of those type situations.
You're technically correct here that the super academic way of defining critical race theory is not being taught to 4th graders.
Suicide.
Right? With that
I'd
being
hope so. It'd be pretty
With
tough
that
for
being
them.
said, we can talk about critical race theory as an academic theory, or we could use a filler term like wokeism, which is more like racial justice.
I believe it's called critical race praxis.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something different than critical race theory.
Critical race theory does sound spooky. I get a little shiver when I say it. Whereas stuff like anti-racist theory or structural racism maybe compel a little bit more thought when discussed on. It's kind of a moral panic that, in principle, I really disagree with. But if you want to talk, I mean, we can call it wokeism if you want. But just one thing, though, since we're operating under the blanket wokeism, which is a really broad term, let's talk about, like, specific ideas.
The idea that in the welfare state that we have, with the private philanthropy kind of generosity we have, that shoplifting and arson and looting, mugging Barbara Boxer, that we should just say, it's actually because of the
I
environment.
don't know why you pointed at me when you
No,
said I have never mugged Barbara
I'm
Boxer.
saying that as an example.
Yeah, I don't mean to.
Was that you in San Francisco?
Where were you?
Yeah.
So how about reparations for slavery?
I think I'm pretty in favor of that, yeah.
Okay,
It's
make the argument.
just an owed debt. We said 40 acres and a mule. We never paid it. And unfortunately, the material reality for a lot of people who were slaves didn't change that much after they were emancipated. I mean, if you were a slave and you're made free, that's a big step up, don't get me wrong, but you have nothing. I mean, nothing. And because of the way generational wealth transfers, unfortunately, we still see the consequences of that borne out. You can actually look county by county. Where were slaves kept? Which were the plantation counties? And you see, this group of black neighborhoods, that's where they settled after slavery ended. It's like really immediate stuff, and it's a debt owed that this nation never paid.
What do you view reparations as, more importantly?
So this is a big divide. Some people think like cash payments. I'm not a big fan of that. It doesn't fix the problem, for one. It's if you can put money into that community, but there's been research done on how long a dollar stays in a black neighborhood as opposed to a white neighborhood. And if a black neighborhood, all of the businesses are owned by corporate boards that are all majority white, eventually the money filters out and you get a very temporary boost in living situation, not much long-term structural change. I'm a big fan of structural reparations, not based on race, but rather based on targeting neighborhoods that need it the most. Some of these neighborhoods are like white. I passed through some of them on my way out from Ronald Reagan Airport. I can tell which parts of this country. You can see it in the bones of the neighborhood. And I think that a new proper reparations project, a new New Deal even.
I'm against reparations. I just don't like the word. And I think the racial thing is being used as this distraction tool to throw smokescreen in the middle.
In my mind, the reason why it's important to recognize the racial issue here is that the nature of class divides in this country is cut into racial policy prior to the Civil Rights Act. The redlining that took place, lines which still remain not in law but in practice, the consequences of slavery and of second-class citizenship for black people left unaddressed, a wound left to fester that unfortunately can't really heal itself inertially unless we do something specific.
You've heard this argument many times, and you probably disagree with it, but it's just true. I would point to a culture of fatherlessness.
Having two people in your house to raise you is pretty much essential. You absolutely
Glad
need
we
to.
agree.
This is undeniable. While I don't believe in shaming single parents, even if their single parentedness is a product of bad decision making, it's still good. You need it's in this economy, one parent, honestly.
Yeah.
But with that being said, there has been research shown that the rate of black fatherlessness is somewhat over-exaggerated, in large part because that number only applies to married fathers, so husbands raising their children. It turns out when you account for unmarried black couples taking care of their kids, the numbers actually rise to those just below white couples.
You just said two parents in the home is a good thing, which we totally agree on. I think that's the ideal. Everything shows that is something that we should push for.
Three parents maybe getting even better.
Oh yeah,
50%.
Yeah, polyamorous relationships.
Yeah,
not a fan.
Based.
But
my apologies.
Let me just point out all these white guys sitting having a debate over the black community, huh?
We're agreeing way too much, Tim. Do you see any downsides to getting 3-year-olds just caring, not 3-year-olds, third graders caring about the color of people's skin all the time?
Well, I think depending on their environment, they might already, whether they know it or not. I don't believe we live in a colorblind world, so teaching people that we do can often lead them to remain ignorant to evident problems. Say you're teaching about very basic early history,
This is where I wanted to get to.
Yeah, okay.
This is important.
So here are some things about America's founding that I like. One of the first practical liberal democracies, glory of the republic. Folks had nice hair back then.
Not a democracy, but a republic.
Right.
That's
Well,
okay.
I mean, they're not mutually exclusive, and we of course did more to fulfill the promise of a democracy with time. But obviously, when America was founded, it was a slave state. 1 in every 6 people in America at that time was human property.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
How many states had abolished slavery by the time the Constitution was ratified?
Well, I don't know the exact number.
9 out of
But I
13.
mentioned-
That's not a slave country.
Well, then you could say it was a confederacy with portions that were slave
I think
states.
that's better said. 9 out of 13 had already abolished. There was a sunset moratorium for slavery in the Constitution.
So this could...
Vermont abolished slavery in 1777. We were on the way to eradication. We were not a slave country.
Well, hold on. I mean,
and I'll add one thing.
We were on the way, but then like 80 years later, it was still happening.
So the question is why, right? That's a really important question. And
Economics, I
well,
imagine.
yes.
My understanding of the founding of America isn't as simplistic as the founding fathers were evil because X or Y. I recognize, of course, that
And I appreciate that.
there are incredible complexities to those issues. And also, I'm not a historian. There are probably tons of things out there I don't even know that might change my opinion in the future. But 1 in every 6 Americans was owned. And while that may have been constrained to some of the states, it was still ultimately under the purview of the federal government to make decisions with regards to the legality and constitutionality of that. Now, some people, they get really defensive when this conversation comes. I'm not saying you guys, but some people they do. And I think it's because they think I'm assigning some kind of moral worth to them now or to the country now or making some kind of broad prescriptive statement. I'm not. The only thing I'm saying is when you're teaching history to a bunch of kids, you have to teach it all. At least you have to teach the basic pointers. And for black Americans, the history of this country has been less than favorable. So I think that in the context of that discussion, saying, and to this day, we still have some problems with race. There are some legacies of slavery that still affect black people, and we're working on it today. Something like that. That's a kind of racialization that I'm in favor of because it doesn't encourage stereotyping. It doesn't encourage discrimination. It just encourages a base awareness of some serious problems.
So the question is, what is good? What is evil? Well, we don't know a line is crooked unless we have a straight line to compare it to.
Well, you know what I think on this, don't you?
I actually don't.
The narrative we've told about the founding of this country has for a long time been deeply whitewashed. We talk about the founding fathers like they're heroes, and there is heroism in their lives, no denying that. And we often gloss over many of the horrors of this country. There are things that we've done, for example, that we would use as an incentive to forever despise other countries that nobody's even taught about.
Is the goal to try to have young people graduate by the time of high school to be skeptical, apprehensive, and not very proud of the country, or eventually tell a true and patriotic story where you have people graduating that are thankful and have gratitude? That's the purpose of education when it comes through.
Gratitude is not the purpose of education.
Well, I think gratitude's a moral necessity.
No, you should be grateful for the people in your life, but I will never be grateful to the state. I'm not that much of a collectivist.
Well, not a state. Are you not thankful that you live in America?
I'm thankful of the things that make my life easier. I was born white to well-off parents, and today I enjoy many of the benefits of having really responsible and attentive parents.
Are you thankful you have constitutional rights that are protected by government, given to you by God?
But do you know how those constitutional rights came about? They were fought for by whiny bitches like me who were never satisfied with what they were already given.
They were granted by God, protected in the Constitution.
They were fought for by whiny, same as the 14th and 15th Amendments, everything that's come since. We fought for them, and it is discontentedness that leads us to fight.
Then?
I'm thankful for their efforts, as am I for
there's some gratitude.
Sure, I'm grateful to them, but patriotism. I'm grateful to what people in America do, but America's a concept. It's been used to do a lot of good and a lot of harm.
It's a home.
Well, a home can be I mean, in the broadest sense, but I know what my home is. I know where my family lives, and I'm loyal to them. When it comes to this country, though, this is a political and economic bloc, and I have only one concern, and it's that the people in this country live the best lives possible. Also outside the country, but I live here. This is my backyard. And when I want people graduating, from high school, I don't want them to feel this sense of contentedness. Contentedness is the death of activism for all that's good.
I think that we should try to be developing and graduating kids with strong character that want to appreciate and protect a country.
I have to wonder, is it not the prerogative, and I'm not assigning this to you, of tyrants to make sure that the children who graduate from their schools find no fault in the nations they're taught to love?
See, I never said no fault. But you could be thankful for something, and you can have a holistic view of something and understand that there were stumbles and there were missteps, while also being pretty freaking proud of that something. How exceptional this project is.
What if there are current problems, like today, How much do we choose the things we do? You can make an argument that it's all, I mean, you're religious, of course, so you wouldn't have this argument. But
I wouldn't have anything close to this argument.
Right. From a secular perspective, you can make the argument that at the end of the day, the things we do are driven entirely by the chemical reactions in our brain, and therefore everything that we do from start to finish is just a combination of random molecular patterns and blah, blah. We don't live our lives like that. Obviously, I make a choice to get dressed every day. We know how this works in practice, but in practice, we are also the product of our environment.
How many excuses or accommodations are we going to give for crime?
I would just like to interject that Obama extrajudicially assassinated people, and nobody did anything about it. So
now that's black privilege.
But
that's a joke. Don't.
Don't.
Drugs is bad. We need to stop locking people up for weed, just flat out. I think that drugs in general should be treated like a medical issue. Portugal did that. They decriminalized all drugs. So
there's conflicting data on Portugal, but fine.
It's pretty promising. So you take like heroin. Nobody wants to be on heroin, okay? If you're on heroin, in the fleeting moments you have in between your little sessions, you know something's up. So you treat that like a medical issue. Say, hey, we have government offices. You want to come by? That helps. Far fewer overdose deaths, and those people, they go ahead, they become socially productive, bam, no crime, they contribute to the economy. It just works better than locking them up. Every time we make a step forward, you're probably anti-gay marriage, right? Because are you?
I'm pro-traditional marriage.
Okay, sure, right, anti-gay marriage.
One man, one woman. Yeah.
Every time we take a step forward, well, we agreed on the 3-parent household before.
I disagreed on polyamory,
actually. 50% more efficient than the previous method.
And that's not actually a study, is it?
And 10 times more chaotic and way more perverse.
I'm not actually citing anything.
It's possibly not a linear growth pattern with parents in the household.
It's actually exponential.
It
just goes up forever.
Yeah, that's very...
Albert Einstein had 12 parents.
By the time you hit 12 parents, should the children just a god, by the way. Just a
it's like a warp scale.
Very Ubermensch, but continue, yeah.
Sorry. I don't know. Thank you. Get your vaccination and vote Biden for more censorship to add to expand upon the existing.
Make good decisions.
Make good decisions. Yeah.
Yeah. There you
go.
go.
Talk to your doctor about what's right for you. Don't take medical opinions from people on the
internet.
Of
course. Talk to your doctor about voting for Biden.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I love dead white guys.